You've survived another week. Thank you for listening, downloading, and subscribing to the Black Man with a Gun Show podcast, formerly known as the Urban Shooter. This week I got an author from England, born in South Africa, also a blast from the past, an old interview from 10 years ago, from the author of Shooting Back, The Right to Self-Defense by Charl van Wyk. Here's hoping everything is Gucci where you are.
BlackManWithAGun.com, Ken Blanchard's Pro-Gun Podcast.
Well, at the time of this recording, it is middle of October. This is episode number 650. 650. I can't believe I've been podcasting since 2007. I can't believe that for a long time you were here. Thank you for all the long-time listeners, and thank you for those who have just found me, either by YouTube or by word of mouth. I've grown, as I can tell you. I've changed a little bit. I've learned some things over my role. Still loving podcasting, though. It's my medium. I plan to be venturing out in 2021 with a voice acting career, so we'll see where that goes. You know, James Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman can't live forever. Silencer Co. People, passion, and precision. Since the birth of Silencer Co. in 2008, our dedication to authenticity and innovation has never wavered. Today, we continue to focus on exceptional customer service and industry-leading products. Products that are crafted by people with the utmost dedication to our industry. We are hunters, shooters, and gun enthusiasts, just like you. We are excited for what the future holds and look forward to bring you the products that continue to set industry standards. SilencerCo.com. Check out the new blog at SilencerCo.com when you get a chance. If you're into motorcycles, I want you to check out IndianMotorcycleRadio.com. That's my other podcast, as well as SpeakLifePodcast.com. That's SpeakLifePodcast.com for all you Christians out there. Big shout out to all those who have been supporting the podcast, for those who have found our newsletter link on blackmanwithagun.com to join our email list. And thank you just for being my friend. You know, you didn't have to be. It's all a choice thing. Somebody once said that friends are the people who make you smile brighter, laugh louder, and live better. And I know I'm an acquired taste. Not everybody gets me, but you do. And I thank you for it. This week on the Black Man with a Gun Show podcast, I got a chance to interview Gerald Bailey, author of Children and Firearms, the Combative Red Dot Pistol, Dynamic Vehicle Combative, Self-Defense and the Law, Home Invasion Survival, and the Christian Warrior books. The guy was born in Salisbury, Rhodesia, which we call now Zimbabwe, in 1973. He is the father of some bright young boys, and he once served in the South African Navy. He's a pretty cool guy. And in talking to him, I remembered that 10 years ago, I had an interview with Charl van Wyk. Have you ever heard of the St. James Church Massacre in South Africa? Sometimes we think in America that we are the only ones that are subject to terrorism, but that's not the case. Where there are people, there are trouble. The St. James Church Massacre was a massacre perpetrated at the St. James Church of England in South Africa in the Kenilworth, Cape Town part of South Africa on 25th of June, 1993 by 4 members of the Azanian People's Liberation Army. 11 members of the congregation were killed and 58 were wounded. In 1998, the attackers were granted amnesty for their acts by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. One of the members of this congregation, Charl van Wyk, wrote a book, and I got a chance to meet him and talk to him. It's called Shooting Back, The Right and Duty of Self-Defense. Charl returned fire with a .38 Special, revolver actually, wounding only one of the attackers. It was 10 years ago. That's a long time to be doing a podcast. I went back and searched for the old episode. I'm going to have it in the show notes. Episode 140, I got a chance to interview Susan McComas in her new book and talk about Charl van Wyk back then. Got invited to South Africa to preach, to teach firearms, to do a whole bunch of stuff. Never quite made it there. I found that whenever you're looking too close at something, it's good to back away and get a bigger picture. It helps everything else come into focus. After this interview, this conversation with Gerald, I'm going to add on the old episode with Charl van Wyk so that you can hear some of the nuances from back in the day, 10 years ago. Episode 140. You ready? Let's do it. Man, how are you doing today?
Very well, very well. Thank you very much for your reply and your interest. It's just kind of...
Don't say overwhelming, because you're cranking out content. That's always a good thing.
Well, yeah, it is. It's been fun to write the books and kind of vent my frustrations at the lunacy that I see out there in the training fields. It's there's some shocking stuff, and I get shouted down and told I don't know what I'm doing. And there was, I just,
They beat me down to submission. After years of it, I just stopped because I was doing it for God and country. I was really trying to just educate my brother and just get people safer and give people, some, self-reliance, all that good stuff. And then
for sure,
they were like, heretic, how can you be this way? You're adding to the violence in the street. You're going to be killing ourselves. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where did I go wrong? And I ended up just talking about advocacy more than actually shooting. So I became a gun rights activist instead of an instructor. So I let all my certs go away. I stopped chasing after all the old guys back then, and just start preaching. And until a few years ago, I got tired and just like, nobody hears. It's a thousand people out here now doing it. So I feel like a mountain man, that I was just too far ahead of my time, I think.
No, look, it's because I'll travel to the States and graduate as a red dot pistol instructor and do this and do that. And then, I don't know if you read in my book, I get to quietly vent a bit of my frustration in my books. Each little vent, I know who I'm talking about. Nobody else, if they read it, they might know.
Right.
But
right.
It's unfortunate. Okay, we're in the UK now, so we had to flee. But with South Africa, if you weren't part of the cool kids, on the block and part of their National Rifle Instructors Association, it just meant absolutely nothing. And my Red Dot book, that was written. Well, I don't know if you've read it, but it's I predict like 5 years time from the date of the book, especially in South Africa, Red Dot will be, the cool thing, and all the cool kids. Actually, they've beaten me to that, because already now they're the ninjas there, or the so-called ninjas are Red Dot. I'm Superman, and I'm like, well, here's a book on how to set everything up. You don't just glue your red dot onto your pistol, and it's got to be custom done, and this, and you've got to have backup sights, and shut up, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, who am I?
I know.
I literally only wrote the book on it, but anyway, that's besides the point. So I was like, oh no, I just apologized to the guy, and I'm like, well, off you go, whatever. So I gave up. I've got a good friend here, ex-South African as well, and he says, Gerald, what are you doing? What are you doing? You just opening. I said, I couldn't stop myself. I had to comment. He says, you dumbass. I'm like, yes, I know. Why? But I've got some pet peeves. I definitely have pet peeves. And when I see the cool kids doing it, I just, hold me back. But yeah.
So let's talk about the old book then. And then before that, I didn't even get a chance to just learn about you. You created several books, but this one we're going to talk about is about the Red Dot Combat Pistol Course, which I didn't know existed, because again, I'm not in the cool kids class now. I'm not on Instagram with all my new stuff, and people aren't rushing to send me things because I have like 5,000 likes. It's an odd world. But tell me about the book, about the combat pistol with the red dot.
I went to this. I had an opportunity with an organization to go qualify as a red dot pistol instructor, and qualified in that, which is it's phenomenal. Taking the pistol and kind of making it like a rifle, that sort of distance. So we're doing, good grouping headshots at 120 meters easily, and with consistency. And one of the things that it really solidified in me was the forgotten art of the fundamentals. As we mentioned, all the cool kids want to jump around and little speed things, and they look like they're having what we call a tactical epileptic fit. Speed rear holsters and stuff, and we actually got to slow it down and really build on the fundamentals, which are absolutely critical for everything. Got back and thought, well, I'm going to start introducing the red dot concept into the South African firearm fraternity. And with that, hit a lot of roadblocks and a lot of, you don't know what you're talking about. I've watched a YouTube video, you don't know what you're doing. So I wrote the book, and but what I originally envisioned for it was, if somebody walked into a shop and said, right, I want to do a red dot on my Master Blaster, or I want to buy one, how do I set it up? And it was literally an A to Z. That's why I go into holsters. At the time of writing, the kind of top 5 reflex sights that were going onto pistols that were available then, and I think Holosun had just released their one, so I added that one in as well. But literally, how to set it up, a little bit of troubleshooting, so the person has an A to Z, how to do it correctly, and not, as I saw, there was a Browning high power just before we left, and the guy had bought it with the very, very, $2 red dot from China, literally glued onto the slide. And I still said to myself, well, this is what you need to do. And he's like, oh, no, well, I've got a red dot on, it's great. I'm like, it doesn't make you automatically a sniper. It doesn't make you any better. You need to learn the system. I mean, you can put me into the space shuttle, but sure as hell, I can't fly it. I will crash it. I'll look cool doing it, but I will die. So, yeah.
How did you get into this whole space?
Into the firearm industry, the training industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hosted an American instructor, 15 to 18 years ago. Brought him out, had to build his name, and graduated as an instructor with him. Brought him out a second time, and eventually I started traveling to him and qualifying in various things, and then obviously just built. And I've always loved firearms since my military days. It's not just necessarily the shooting and blowing things up, but it's actually understanding how it works as well. So with that, coupled into the love of teaching people, I started teaching my children, and hence why I wrote the book on how to teach your children how to safely use firearms. Everything I teach, I have used myself. I've taught people with it. I have respectfully debated anti-gunners with it to the point where they want to attend one of my classes. And again, I've been called immoral for this, but all my boys, all 3 of them, were shooting 22 semi-automatics just before their 3rd birthday. So, it was just a passion of teaching. And again, I think there is that interjection of frustration of what I was seeing out there, of what we Abner Miranda, Tier 1 citizen, calls entertainment, where you attend a class and it's literally just entertainment. I've attended classes like that in South Africa, and it was a fantastic way on how to die. If you survive, you'll be sued. And this was one of the top classes supposedly in South Africa. And that's why I wrote my Dynamic Vehicle Combatives book on that, and I mention it because it was horrendous, and you paid top dollar for the course. I mean, if you're talking about an American, it's a $500-$600 course, so it's expensive.
Yeah, there's no checks and balances on training. Sometimes it's just a matter of how well you market, how good word of mouth gets around. Like, oh man, we're doing these crazy things. We're shooting between our legs, and we don't use hearing protection, and we point the guns at each other, and we're like super ninja, and that's what
Oh yeah,
sells though.
no, for sure. I mean, there is somebody in South Africa. It's nice I can actually talk about it now. And this, he's very high profile, very high profile, and he gets a lot of bad press, but people, name their next child after him. And I mean, he does disarms, and he's got it on YouTube. Disarm techniques with loaded guns, pointing at his face, and you just, but he's ex-military, so he's all, Rambo hardcore, Chuck Norris and stuff, and you just, you know what, it's foolishness. It's foolishness because you've got somebody who is, I don't know, stuck in some location with limited internet access, and he, finds this video and he thinks, wow, I'm going to do this with my friends, and blows his buddy's head off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. There's no checks and balances with the training. Unfortunately, again, South Africa became a bit of, the checks and balances are there, but with the if you wanted to become a certified instructor in South Africa, that organization, their training material, I looked at it, and it's definitely on the cutting edge of 1983. That's where they are, and I actually got to shoot with one of their trainers. They train the instructors. So that's the level that this guy was on, and I ended up teaching him how to just draw his firearm correctly. He had no knowledge of how to really draw a firearm. So it becomes a bit political, unfortunately. We're part of the Gucci Club. So, yeah, you're not part of us? Sorry, you're not a legitimate instructor. But by the way, you're going to pay us $500 a year just to use our name. You're like, well, what benefit do I get? No, nothing. So,
we have those too.
Yes.
What's for those who are listening, what's some good things to think about before you pick your trainer? What to look for if you are new to the firearms group and you're looking, you're searching? What's some tips that you could share to help them find a decent trainer?
I would look for an instructor he or she do not have their base, with respect, and also being a veteran myself, is they're not ex-military, and the reason why is because the military operate under different rules of engagement, as opposed to the civilian on the streets. You, as a civilian, we can't just go, talking about certain things openly, and I think that is one of the bases that is a failure. People go for the Gucci crowd. They sit and jerk around, and they're always changing their curriculum. My curriculum, I've modified it over the years as I've picked up new things. Whereas I don't do outcomes-based training. That is box ticking. That's your, with due respect, and I love law enforcement, but that's them. Okay, you can shoot a target at 2 meters. Great, you've ticked a box. I would also look at their safety standards. It might not be the cool kid club, but there is that thing of liability. You as far as possible, you don't want your students shooting each other. That's bad for business. But you also don't want to project an image of invincibility to your clientele. You want reality with them. You want to avoid an instructor who openly berates and swears at his clientele. There was an instructor in South Africa, and if you actually ever listen to this, he'll know who he is, because I got his contract afterwards, which ran for many years. So thank you very much. He actually stabbed one of the clients, and the guy, he was operational, and it was 8 stitches, and he was out for 8 days out of rotation, and he would regularly, beat up the clientele as well, because he was a martial artist. You want to avoid fools like that. You want a solid instructor who is moving with the times as well. Personally, and this is purely personal, and I've got some good friends who are instructors, and they do the opposite. High round count. I've got some friends. They'll say, "Well, hey, look, I'm heading off to a class in the States, and I've got 1,200 rounds for the 2 days." And I'm going, okay, are you just going to the range to blast off ammunition? Or does the instructor have scenarios for you in which you use limited ammunition? Because again, when I was, when I carried in South Africa, I had close on 70 rounds of 9mm hollow point on me. And that was my round count. That's all I had. So 1,200 rounds, I feel personally, and it's my personal opinion, is the instructor doesn't have enough curriculum to impart knowledge. Another one, through this experience of that very bad How to Die class in South Africa, the course ran at an incredible pace. So he would break off around the vehicles, and you've got 5 or 6 people with a vehicle. Now you want to rotate inside, and literally the first 2 people got a chance, and he's like, "All right, come back, and we're moving on to something else." And I'm going, "What? I'm a practical learner. I can read about stuff. That's great, but I need to see it practically. I need to see a video. I need to do it myself." And that instructor, he didn't understand the different types of learning. Audio, visual, and then kind of static. I need to hold stuff. So I lost out on a lot of stuff. Not that it really mattered, because as I said, it was a very poor class. But I think those are kind of general things one should look for. Obviously, find somebody you trust. I'm always available. If you want to ask me for my opinion, I like to be unbiased in my opinion and just give my honest opinion on it. You can contact me and ask me, is this a good guy? And if I don't know him, I don't know him.
You're not afraid of stepping on people's toes sometimes.
Well, that's why I told you the Modern Day Christian Warrior book. It is the most controversial book ever written in the history of firearms pertaining to that subject. I'm hoping for hate mail. I wouldn't be surprised if I got death threats again. I've had death threats against me. So yeah, it's that's not stepping on toes. That book, that's jumping on them. So yeah.
You knew Charl van Wyk? Or is it Charl van Wyk?
Oh, Charl van Wyk.
That's how you say it. I've been mispronouncing his name for years.
There we go, Charl van Wyk. Yes, good friend of mine. That was actually my old church that he shot back at.
What?
I was at St. James Church. Yeah, I didn't go that evening. I think I was there that morning. I just didn't go to the evening service. But yeah, no, I've trained Charl's children, trained him in his missionaries.
What?
I've trained them all and stuff. So yeah, no, he's a fantastic guy, and I highly recommend his book. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, we've been talking. Well, I haven't spoke to him now in a decade, but when I first got started in the realm, we connected, and yeah, that's just say his name again. Charl van Wyk.
Van
Wyk.
Okay. Yeah, in Afrikaans, the W is said as a V. Wildebeest, not wildebeest. Yeah.
All right.
Afrikaans lesson.
That's good right there.
Yeah.
So what's it like to be born in Rhodesia? To be South African, to be there was a time, I remember when I was in the Marines, I was slated to go to South Africa to be part of the American embassy there, but it was still in a time of apartheid. So they saw the picture and the name didn't match. So when they saw me and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll just send Blanchard there," and then they saw the picture and said, "Oh no, we can't send you there." I thought I was kind of put out. I'm thinking, the world's not fair. What's wrong with you guys? I didn't catch up to the whole apartheid thing until after I got denied that. But how was it growing up in this environment?
Rhodesia was one of the most fantastic places in the world. As I say, Rhodesians never die. I'm just waiting to raise my Rhodesian flag here. And it's Rhodesia was fantastic. I still remember. At the tender age of 3, I turned to my mom. We visited somebody out in the bush, a farm, and I still remember turning to her and said, on the windows, because we had mosquito nets and stuff we slept under because of malaria and that. And she turned to me, she said, "No, those are hand grenade nets." I was like, "Huh?" And she said, "No, because the terrorists come at night and they just throw a hand grenade in through the window and they kill whoever's in there, a baby girl, your child, your servant, whoever, it does not matter." So yeah, no, Rhodesia was beautiful. It really was. Ian Smith was. I never knew him, but Dr. Peter Hammond from Frontline Fellowship. I've trained them, and he knew Ian Smith. Gentleman of gentlemen, loved black, white, colored, Indian, really didn't matter. He served the country. So yeah, then South Africa. Well, we left Rhodesia because of the Bush War and moved to South Africa. We were just like middle class. We were nothing special. It's going about our day, and it's going to school. We had bomb scares. 8 short bells, I still remember, and you fired up and you very rapidly moved to the field, the rugby field, the football field, and got out of the building. So we had regular bomb scares at our school. But part of I was at a different church, and I mean I had colored and black friends. To me it was, I know white people who I'm like, you know what? No, you're not going to be around my children. How about no? I had, because I've left now with black friends who, I leave my children with them to babysit. No problem. Not a worry in the world. So yeah, it's going into the military. We were even in the Navy in basics. We were primed to go into the riots and stuff. It was a tense time, and then suddenly, everything's kind of gone. Everything changed. So it was a good change. But again, there's been pros and cons to it. That's my personal opinion. People slate me for being a racist. Well, I've been called a double racist. But anyway, don't know what that is. But, like I said, in the military, I served with some white guys that I eventually just said, I will not operate with that guy. Told my OC, will not operate with that guy. He is incompetent. And thank the Lord, I never was kind of put in the position to operate with him. I operate with colored guys, black guys.
The Christian Warrior.
Yes.
Where are you coming with that book? What's the crux of it? What are you trying to push with that?
There was a book from America, a well-known writer. He wrote a Christian Warrior book. I got a copy of it. I was quite interested in it. And I came out with, looking at God's word and speaking to a pastor and stuff, I came out with about an A4 page worth of inaccuracies, we'll say, in this book. And I emailed him and I said, well, this kind of doesn't fit in with God's word, this. And he never replied to me. When I was in America last year, I was with a certain person calling themselves a committed Christian. And if when you read the book, you'll see there's an incident in there, and I put it into the book because it really showed me and illuminated a certain side of the Christian warriors out there. To put it plainly, on the left you've got the liberal Christian, who is Jesus was a pacifist. He was an open-toe, sandaled-wearing, tie-dyed hippie who liked to have barbecues on the beach, and sing Kumbaya. And on the other side, you've got the far right, where they've got on their Glock slide, Lord, make my hands a weapon, and all this war talk and stuff, where they have missed the point and what the book's goal is. And look, I dedicate an entire page warning people that it's a controversial book. Is I want to bring both sides into the center to be more like Jesus, where Jesus was lion, yes, but he was also lamb. And I think both sides have missed the boat in that. They want Jesus to be who they wanted to be. And I've been in the Firearms fraternity for many years, and got the all hardcore, and even put tattoos and St. James cross tattoos on but they're in the Christian faith, there are weaklings. So the purpose of the book is to bring them to be more like Jesus. So as Ecclesiastes says, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time for war. There is a time for war. There is a time to kill, but there is a time to heal, to love, to care. And we've got to get that balance. We've got to get it back, especially in the firearm trade, because I think it's gone, my personal opinion, has gone out of whack. And it's been hijacked. It's like healthy living has been hijacked by the hippies. It should be a Christian thing. So that's the gist of the book, whilst offending everybody.
Now, you got some really, you really talk about the crucifixion in the beginning, and like all the really glazed over stuff that we just don't even talk about. I mean, it's like, and Jesus died. Next, we just changed, but you're showing how violent that is, how inhumane some of that stuff was done, how the history is brutal, and you actually show it.
Yes, my purpose there was, in our state, you've probably read, is I don't want to grotesque people out. I don't want people to, think, oh man, this is just a blood and gore book. But on the other hand, and I've got a friend, a wonderful pastor friend up in Scotland, and I phoned him and we spent about an hour or two talking about, because I wanted information on church history from him. And he just gave me this absolute tidal wave of information. And I had to draw it back where I've got, and I hope I achieved it with the book, is where there's a balance of, it's a theological book, but it's not theology, where somebody can read it, but it's not, they don't get bogged down, and it's a heavy read. But in saying that, I wanted them to understand again who Jesus was and is, and understand the scourging. Where, as you'll see, I start with the scourging and the scourging stone. That's where I didn't start for Christ there, but the scourging. What did that actually mean, and how brutal was the scourging? Then in crucifixion, and how brutal crucifixion was. And I touch on the medical side, but I could have gone into a lot more detail. But again, I don't want to make it a grotesque book. I wanted someone that can go. My goal with that was to go, for the reader to say, wow, Jesus went through that voluntarily for me, and understand that's where the word excruciating pain, it comes from the cross. That pain, I mean, we can't feel it. You and I talking now, we can't feel it now, but to try and impart some of what that pain would have been. And it's not just physical pain, it's absolute humiliation as well. So yeah.
I know I'm holding you along, but folks don't get a chance to hear from outside the continental U.S. often. We are so consumed with ourselves. I remember when I lived abroad, it was amazing and also kind of embarrassing on how we thought that the world centered around us, and it don't. I mean, just you find out how small your country is when you're not there, and how everybody else is also consumed with world views and politics and what's happening. So from your optic, not being here, what do you see what's going on in the U.S.?
It seems that we've been controversial.
Yeah, man.
For me personally, I didn't want to form any opinions on, the first debate, and I'm also doing some steampunk stuff at the moment as well. So, I sat there and listened to the debate, and I formed my own opinion on it, whether it's right or wrong. People will agree, disagree with me. I come back to the nitty gritty of it. Like with Mark Driscoll, Ben Stewart from Passion City, and Mark Driscoll from Trinity Church in Arizona. It's the same for every single country, and more so for the United Kingdom, as nice as it is. You need Jesus. That's it. And people, I know they're probably on this other side of this, this podcast shouting, this idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've traveled around the world. I lived in Africa. I served in Africa. I've done missions work in Africa. I've done military patrols in Africa. And, I've seen the effects of demonic work in Africa. It's horrific. When you deal with that sort of stuff, you know, as a Christian, you've got to look at it at, we're fighting a war of not flesh. It's a spiritual war, and you've got to see it as that. So yeah, to try and avoid your question and getting politically incorrect.
No, man, you did fine, because I usually never talk like that, but for some reason, the strength of your character, I knew whatever you said, I was gonna agree with. So you're doing fine, dude. I mean, just keep saying what you're saying.
If I was in America, I know who I would vote for. I've got a friend in America who disagrees with me, but you know what? We're still friends, and we can disagree on this. And he has all the rights in the world to his decision who he will vote for. It's like in South Africa as well. I met people who did not vote the same way I voted, and you know what? They remained friends. They are suffering the consequences of that said vote, but at the end of the day, if I'm not respecting your right of who you're going to vote for, and I want to shove it down your throat on who to vote for, what makes me different to the Mugabe regime or the other brutal communist regimes in Africa forcing you to do stuff? There's no difference.
Amen, brother. Amen. How can folks reach you? And you got any plans to come back to the States anytime soon?
I'm working with a fantastic brother of mine at Covenant Tactical, Danny Ammons. And I, of course, if we didn't have COVID, a little gem squash. But I'm booked in for 3 law enforcement classes. It's 2 in Texas, I think 1 in Georgia. I think I've got that right. South Georgia? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, around there. I've got that. I work with my books are all available on schoolofarmsmedia.com. And we are going to be looking at the online training as well. So get a class together and I will train you. But obviously there'll be no live shooting, and there's a ninja safe indemnity form. So that's pretty much it. As I say, I'm working through Covenant Tactical. So I mean, if somebody wants to get me out there, they can contact Danny. He'll set everything up, and get us to whatever location in the United States that we need to be. So
that's cool, man. Man, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your honesty. What books where can I find your books?
At School of Arms Media, I have got the Dynamic Vehicle Combatives, which again is a controversial book, because my little pet peeve is when people run vehicle classes, everyone starts rolling around on the ground, which is just, no, just don't do it. So there's that one. Then I've got Structure Combatives. With the books, one of my best, they used to be on Amazon. I've taken them off Amazon. One of the best reviews I got on Amazon for my Dynamic Vehicle Combatives book, which is actually just based off my class I run around the world. So a bodybuilder, he gave me a 1-star, and he slated me, absolutely slated me. And he actually missed the entire point of the books that I write. Number one, they're written in conversational term. So as I'm talking, I'm writing. There's no highfalutin, big, Latin names and stuff. I call a spade, if you probably gathered that by now. But also, I don't want you just to survive in a gunfight around a vehicle or in your structure, as my Structure Combatives book is. I want to go beyond that. I want to, like what I was taught in the military and taught in VIP protection is making yourself a hard target. You'll see the embassy. Now you'll see especially the United States embassy around the world. It doesn't look like a bed and breakfast. It looks like a place that you go, that's going to be very hard to get into. well, that's what they want you to think. So my house in South Africa, one of the selling points, and I've spoken to the new owners all these years later, and they love it. They're like, it is a hard target. It looks like a hard target. It looks like you're going to have effort to get in. So with your vehicle, it's setting your vehicle up for success. So, fire extinguisher, medical kit, and all of that. Driving responsibility. I was also an advanced driver instructor in South Africa. So it's those techniques and skill sets I bring in, because when the shooting starts, as we were taught in VIP protection, you failed at your job. Your job is not to be hit as far as possible. Be the hard target. Unfortunately, within the training fraternity, what I'm seeing is, we want to go shoot, and that's the fun stuff. But how about making yourself a hard target? So people, think, no, I'm not going to touch that guy, because with profiling, yes, I teach profiling. I know I've just sinned again. But you got to realize the bad guy is profiling you as well. And I mean, I put it into my Dynamic Vehicle Combatives book, is I have used profiling, and then the next step is using your voice. And as we know, our drill instructors, they never came to you and said, excuse me, Mr. Blanchard, could you please take a jog down there with your rifle? But you can sling it. No, they don't. It gets said in a tone that you understand. And over a forecourt at a gas station, I prevented somebody from coming close to me, just utilizing those skill sets. But you haven't shot him. Yeah, that's why I'm free nowadays, and I've still got that 100,000 Rand in my bank account, because I didn't have to give it to a lawyer because I was arrested. So I know it's uncool, but at the end of the day, what do we want? We want to go back to our families, and we want to hug our children and love them, instead of spending our time in court or being arrested unfairly and having to defend ourselves and having our personal self-defense firearm taken away. So yeah, it's
common sense is not as common as it used to be, my brother.
It is not. And look, I speak mainly for South Africa. The guys, one of the books I wrote with a detective friend of mine, Self-Defense and the Law. And we go into, because I study forensic science as well. So it's forensic science, and he was a high-end detective there. So he weighed in with everything in the police procedures and stuff. And I think if we sell one of those books a year, we're coining it. Because the South African gun-owning fraternity male is, I don't need this. They don't think about that. They don't think about, yes, I can drive fast and I can do everything, but when I have that accident or when the police stop me, what do I do then? When I shoot somebody, it all stops now. Then we were beyond the shooting range. What about then? And crime scene management and not how to change a crime scene, but how to preserve a crime scene so the police can come in and do their job. So we taught all of that, but again, it's not Gucci.
Since 2014, I have been a member of the Crossbreed Holster family. If you carry concealed, get a holster that supports not only your firearm, but your freedom, the faith, and this brother with a try-it-free lifetime guarantee. Crossbreedholsters.com. Crossbreedholsters.com. Here goes.
My name's Charl van Wyk, YK. This is the way we pronounce it, Dutch origin. I work with Frontline Fellowship, the assistant director of the organization. We historically worked in the war zones of Africa to help the suffering churches around Africa. My main areas are South Africa, Zambia, and the Congo, which is a gun-free zone. And the main church I work with has about 700 different congregations around the country. And one of their pastors has been buried alive by rebel soldiers. Many of their people have been devastated by the war. They're very traumatized people around the country. And then I'm also director of a branch of our organization. So there we come before government committees and we do demonstrations on the pro-life issue, the abortion issue, euthanasia, homosexual marriages, all those sorts of mainline issues in the social arena in South Africa. Okay. And then I'm also a founding member of Gun Owners of South Africa and its Control Act, which is a law that's just been passed 4 years ago, which is basically set up to disarm the public in South Africa. And the cabinet minister, Charles van Wyk, who was set aside to disarm the population, was also the chairman of the Communist Party.
It's a nice team to add to.
Try and get you over.
How much time would that be? Probably a week or two?
We would want a minimum of a week of your time if that's possible. We can't compensate you for it. What we did with Larry was Larry got himself over there, and then we raised, like say for instance you go to one city, your host will decide what he'll do, you know. He might put you up in a bed and breakfast or whatever, or at his home, that kind of thing. And so maybe 4 or 5 different cities, the guys will want you to go to a shooting range with them and that sort of thing. So you're going to have to put in 2 weekends if you can.
Gotcha.
So before a weekend and try and leave just after a weekend, because those are obviously the times when you get to see and meet people most, you know.
What's the best time of the year?
The best time for us would probably be about February. So it's a very hot time of the year, but we do have air conditioners, believe it or not. And it's a good time for us. It's probably going to be maybe just before that the government has to get back to the court on how they're going to be compensating people in the guns that have been handed in. The law that we're hoping will bankrupt the system. So that should be around about January. They were given 90 court days at the end of August. So it's September, October, November. And so if we can, we'll make a lot of noise about that. And that will be a good time to get through to the press when we're connecting with them that you're coming too, you know. I just love your little slogan. It will really catch South Africa big time.
Yeah, it would.
And Obvious Kuela is the chairman of the Black Gun Owners Association. They just big and somehow managed to squeeze himself on as an executive member on both organizations.
Diplomat.
That's right.
The ultimate diplomat.
Yeah, that's right. It's fun to get there. We look after you while you're there. If that's possible, that will be great. And if you can let us know what sort of dates, if your wife agrees and the children will let you go, and we'd love to have you over there.
I'll start planning it now.
Yeah, that'll be great. And so what we did was with Larry, we started a month in Cape Town. Obviously, we'd like to organise church services on Sundays. And then if we can get on television, we're limited with television. It's not like the States where they roll. We've only in the last 10 or 12 years got private radio stations going, but they were banned.
Wow.
So it's, everything's sort of new and learning and getting along,
South Africa different from England in which way?
Very different in our culture. The black tribes are pretty radical. The Zulus have like 8 tribes in their nation.
Okay.
So you can imagine that's why our country's gone through such a lot of political turmoil, because everybody wants to have access to the resources. And so we've got 8 official languages,
8.
So you won't have any problem with communicating with anybody there. We're much hotter climate. February is probably the hottest time of the year.
All right.
But as I say, you'll be in air-conditioned places all the time. England I think our people comes to media. Our people are very gentle in that. They ask you questions and they won't try to catch you out or be obnoxious. The Africans are very friendly, very nice. Everything's about relationships and that sort of thing. So they're not rude, and even the gentleman's way of dealing with each other. Especially with foreigners. You'd be like a celebrity guest being, from the States. So, and it'll be a great time with radio probably. So it's going to be very difficult to get in there, unless there's maybe somebody who will put his job on the line.
Understood.
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Wow.
So anyway, but we'd really love you to consider it. And
2 weeks in February.
Yeah, if you could look at that, and it's a very hard flight on the body than actually flying east to west. Yeah. If I'd been in America, I'd go home. It takes me a long time to readapt my body. And many people say that it's very difficult going over there.
Okay.
When they come back, they find it much easier being home. So it's not just the hard work that stresses you out. Like from my side, it's really 7 hours ahead of you. Yeah. So there's one thing that Africa's ahead of America on: time.
Yeah.
And we got lots of it. African time. We call African time is a joke for never being on time for anything. Yeah. If you work on African time, means you just do whatever you like when it suits you. You don't work to a schedule. Okay.
African time. All right. I'll remember that.
And we, speaking to a pastor was chatting to him in Virginia. I can't remember the town's name now, but near Richmond. Mm-hmm. And he was saying to somebody that I was standing near that he was talking about Facebook and emails. It's really cutting down and all this sort of thing, And we've got to start building that up again here. And I said to him, well, in Africa, we're the opposite way around. We're big onto real relationships with people, but we're so big on it, we get no work done. That's why the place looks the way it does,
But the relationships are intact.
Yeah. Oh, there's no problem with that. So,
Gotcha.
It's a different ball game, But, we'd really like it if you prayerfully consider. If it's possible for you to... But anyway, this internet thing is just absolutely mind-blowing for an African,
Yes.
And we just don't think in this kind of world yet. We're way behind. I've got this little website too, which is just...
It's a good newsletter, though.
Way behind on the technology and the way things must look and how nice it must be and this kind of thing. Like very unattractive,
Simple is especially better.
Oh, is it? Oh, yes, yeah, gun owner's website. That's really boring. But the person that does it's got a doctorate in computers, but it's not in web design, So anyway.
On my first site, when I first hit, I've been in computers a long time, and I was really watching this whole web thing and how the internet was about to blow up, and I was so excited. And I took out a loan and got a web designer to build me this website that had all kinds of stuff on it. It had Flash and music, and I think it was James Brown's music was playing when it came on.
Oh, it's too big.
And I didn't know.
You were way ahead of your time.
I didn't know.
Oh, that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you way ahead, we way behind. Somewhere in the middle we'll meet and cause havoc. So,
All right, that's the end of our conversation. But if you were listening, I got invited to tour, preach, and cause some commotion for gun rights in South Africa. They have tried to divide us, but you are held strong. You have neighbors and family that don't know how cool you are, but I do. Help me and support this podcast. Help me be the goodwill ambassador for our side. Nobody likes to start over. Together, we can do this thing. Go to patreon.com/blackmanwithagun. Did you get it? patreon.com/blackmanwithagun.
I want to thank my new friend, Gerald Bailey, for being a part of the show. I want to thank you for coming back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm hoping that I said something that made you think, something that made you go, or you got questions. Feel free to send me a note to contact me. I'll be glad to talk to you. Just in case nobody else has told you this today, I love you. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. Until next time. Shalom, baby.
Until next time, friends.
To keep in touch with Ken and his cause, head over to blackmanwithagun.com.